morning, Cowboy Jim, Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada. Just sitting out back having a smoke. Dear Lord, it is not warm out. Whoa, terrible. My goodness. Went to work the other night and starting a series of 7 night shifts. And I had to take Wednesday night off and Thursday night to go to court and watch a person pretend that all was well, and court case didn't go so well for. Well, actually, that's not true. Court case went exactly the way the creator wanted it to, and I I had hoped that God would. This beard's not so good, um, but yeah, it's 6:30 in the morning almost, and I I watched an abuser who I had let abuse me, and if you ever played poker, and I haven't played it much, but I've watched a lot of it on television, World Poker Tour, stuff like that. And I watched a young man pretend uh, that all was well in his life, and I remembered so many times when that person had uh, done things to me that should not be allowed, and I study people. I study their hearts. I study their actions, which reflect their hearts. And I thought one day I would like to delineate clearly um, the horrors that person inflicted on me, and I thought you'd just be trying to justify yourself, and I will have to think about that hard for a while. Not sure, not sure what God would have me to do, uh, and and yet I know um, beyond shadow of a doubt that all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And I think, in man's eyes, I, I have not been what would be called a success. Um, but I go out back and I sit down in the cold and either with coffee or without, I I talk to the creator, and people say, "Well, are you crazy?" Well, that that could be open for debate, and yet I know that that self same creator loves me, cares for me greatly. He has loved me when I didn't even like me. Mm, not even a lick did I like myself. Not at all. And I think, well, as a man, and I am, um, I've not always been certain of the direction that I wanted to take. I have wandered a little, not from my belief system, um, systems plural. Well, I suppose there's only really one belief system that I adhere to, and that is that the Creator um, loves me, and that His Son suffered, bled, and died on the cross for my sins, and all I ever needed to do was to recognize that He, God, existed and that I only required of myself, that He only required of myself, my recognition of who and what He is. That's a challenge because we really have a hard time as humans um, ascertaining why um, God would even care for us, and or what He was about. Like what what was the purpose? I asked him one time. I said, "Is this some dirty, mean ant farm type thing that you have on the go, or is there a greater purpose to what you, God, have in mind for us?" And in all my, I still find it appalling that I am 73 years old. In 10 years' time, if God tarries in his shutting down of the world and starting up again, I will look back and say, I'm 80 now, and I still feel like 40 because I've always felt like 40. I'm not certain that when I was younger, I didn't feel like 40. I kind of have been stuck on that. And I choose to honor God and his son, who suffered, bled, and died, took my place on the cross for my sins in order to give me an avenue whereby I can be totally at peace with my Creator. And I've walked in that uh, my whole life, failed miserably on too many occasions, but the overriding commission that I have felt God gave me was to honor Him. And my dad used to teach me um, to honor your father and your mother because that was the first admonition, uh, direction that God gave us. And along with that um, came life, blessing, so on. So it was a Monday morning. Went to work on Saturday night, and my superhero Matt was there. He's my higher up supervisor, and in that process of time, we were all sitting around and wondering what's going on, and we found that um, we are shut down as a crew until perhaps shortly after the 1st of January. And I thought, you know, I I don't go to work to make money. I go to work with the hope that I may well be able to encourage someone to consider God, to have some hope beyond their hopelessness. And the shock on the faces of the people in that room, people who had baby children or who had commitments, mortgages, car, truck payments. Oh, gee. And one young man said, "My rent is 2,200 a month." And people live so closely to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck that the shock was devastating for them, even to the point one young man left work. He was so sickened in his heart that he was physically ill because he was looking at a month without pay. At the same time, when he left, he forfeited $500-600 on his next paycheck. That will be the last paycheck, probably for 6 weeks. And I think about the future, and I think about next year. The Rockefeller Foundation said that 2023 would be the year of the famine. Not a famine that is due to global climate change, but a famine that is orchestrated by man. Rockefeller Foundation said there are way too many people alive and well on planet Earth, and the only hope is to have a huge number of them die off. And we we work, we live, we interact, we care for one another, but we don't know squat about squat about anything really. I look back at this past year and I I see and remember well the freedoms that we as Canadians have had that have been eroded, diminished by a government, I think, that's gone awry. I think of the Freedom Convoy. I drove down to Coots on the Montana border, Montana Alberta border, and slept in my truck and enjoyed the company of the Freedom Convoy truckers. And on the Sunday morning, there was a church service, and hundreds of us gathered around the fire pit and microphones and listened to people sing hymns. I watched the people as we sang "O Canada." I mean, it was spiritually moving. And I realized that our government is anti people. The government um, holds us in contempt. Our right to own and bear arms um, slowly is being taken away. Our freedom that our ancestors fought for is being diminished, eliminated. Those things that we held as near and dear are being dissipated, leaving us standing empty handed, perhaps, because too many people have learned to live paycheck to paycheck, meal to meal. I finally, um, this past year have learned to save money. And I don't care what day payday is because I don't need it. I have almost enough. Perhaps not quite, but close. And I go to work to encourage people to look beyond their own pain and see if there is not someone that you could encourage to say, hey, things may well not be working out as well today as you would like them to, but they are still working out, whether we like the outcome or not. So, this has been an extreme rambling wandering through the simplicity, shall we say, intricacy of how I process thought, possibly simplicity. And I want to encourage you, do not despair, though things may well not be the way you would like them to be today, nor as good as you would like them to be today. But I want you to know something. They're not as bad as they could be. And you say, well, that's a little pessimistic. Well, perhaps, perhaps we need to be a little pessimistic about the future because then we would prepare for it. Well, I look over at my little stockpile of food next year, being the year of the famine, wherein people have manipulated the world's economy government wise and have diminished our potential in God, in each other. Scripture teaches us to go forth and love one another, to care one for another. And I think of the number of times I've gone to work and I did not feel happy about very much. But I was always aware of those who hurt more than me. And I would try to build them up. I remember a little girl, her name was Maggie, and a big woman was yelling and screaming at her about Maggie wasn't such a good driver, and little Maggie, I headed over to intervene. We're 60, 70 of us in the heavy equipment laydown. And I headed over to Maggie and this big brute of a woman. And that big girl, she saw me coming. She just turned and walked away. I walked over to Maggie and she was on the floor on her knees crying. And I took my hat off. I got down beside her. I put my arm around her. I said, Maggie, girl, can I pray for you? She said, oh, Jim, please. So I prayed for her. Did it help? Don't know. Tell you this, she knew that I cared about her. God cares about you. You may be on your knees in the middle of a crowded room, weeping your heart out. God loves you. He cares for you. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. He said, there's no other name given unto man whereby you must be saved. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him would not perish, but rather have everlasting life. Children, you're going to live until you die. It's only God's choice. You know it. Do the selfish thing. To fear, commit suicide. Don't do that. Life may well not turn out as good as you would have it to be. But man, humble yourself and pray. Say this simple four-sentence word: God, forgive me. I accept that Jesus Christ, your Son, took my place on the cross for my sins. I am so sorry. Help me to be what you want me to be. God bless you. God keep you. Look up, because your redemption in Jesus Christ draweth nigh. So, have a good day. I wish you the best. I would that you had the hope that I have in my heart, soul, spirit, that tomorrow is going to be a better day than today, that there is one who loves me and yet knows me. God bless you, Cowboy Jim, Fort Mac. Y'all take care now. God bless.